Hey everyone, Jay here. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to another episode of Cafe Verite. This is number 5 and really glad that you're spending some time with us here. As you already know, or if you've seen the other episodes, Cafe Verite is really a series of videos about life behind the bar and working as a professional barista, giving you an idea of what we do behind the bar here at Spro Coffee in Baltimore, in the Hamden neighborhood on the Avenue. And so this is we're just starting out the day, setting up all the pastries. So we get some pastries from local bakeries, or we do some of the baking in-house. And we're always looking for nice quality stuff, and you just got to set it up and get it out there and looking around, make your inspection, fill up the bottle case. So we keep Topo Chico and Mexican Coke. And then, of course, we have a glass top pastry table or display. And so want to make sure that's clean. So we got some Windex or some glass cleaner, and we just set that up and get the place ready to go. And also part of that preparation is always trying to keep up with the different ingredients that we use in our drinks. And coconut milk is one of the major components for our Jalapeno macchiato and Jalapeno cappuccino. And it's quite a popular addition. It's interesting because now in modern times we have these a lot of customers want to come in and they're like, hey, can I get coconut milk? But really our coconut milk, as you can see, is the Asian ingredient style. So it's something that we've been carrying for a long time now. We've actually started carrying this back in the early 2000s, and since before we started Spro, and it's just an ingredient. So it's not really the coconut milk that everybody has come to find for their milk replacement. So we keep it with that. We keep it just as an added addition to the drink. So these Jalapeno cappuccino, Jalapeno macchiatos are actually made with dairy milk and the coconut milk. And it's based on this Hawaiian dessert called haupia, which is actually really sweet. So it's not really, these aren't really sweet drinks. They're just kind of mellow coconutty drinks without the sweetness. So we kind of do it that way. All right, so here's something that's kind of funny. This video is being shot at the end of May 27th, I think, and we have poinsettias. These poinsettias are the poinsettias that we had in the window during Christmas. We got them in November. They've been there since November, and here's the thing that I never really figured out quite well is, we get a lot of poinsettias, or people in general in America get poinsettias to celebrate Christmas, but what do you do with it after? Like, I think most people just throw them away, and I really, really dislike throwing away plants. I mean, they're just alive, and typically we try to keep them going, but typically they'll die. But these are the ones, I mean, they're over, what, it's June, we're at the cusp of June. These are like 8 months old at least, we've had them for 8 months and they're still going. So Sergio and I are always kind of trying to water them at least once or twice a week. And what I do is I kind of, they've got this kind of like really lightweight medium. So rather than try to soak them with, I just kind of run water through them, room temperature, let them soak through, let them drain, and then put them back in those plastic pretty things, and then put them back out, and hopefully they're still there. So next up, we've got 3 drinks, 3 iced cold brews, iced coffees. That's the thing here at Spro. We kind of don't really make a big to-do about the name for iced coffee, cold brew. If you come in and say, hey, I'd like an iced coffee, or hey, I'd like a cold brew, you're going to get the same thing because we don't differentiate between the two. There is iced coffee and there's cold brew, and we make them both the same way. And yeah, so just in case you're wondering, it's the same. Next up is a Iced Americano. And so as you can see, we take the room temperature water from the tap. We put that into a cup about halfway, the 16-ounce cup, and then we're pulling the shot on top of it. We always want to pull the shots on top of our drink, and always as much as possible into the actual vessel or cup that we're serving it in. Now, as you notice, we did pull the water from the tap. One thing about our facility is that we have the entire water system treated. So where we instead of like only treating certain parts of the water system in our shop, we basically took the line in from the city and we treated it from that point. So all the water coming from the city gets treated and then dispersed throughout the facility. So wherever we're pulling the water from, it's always properly filtered and balanced. So, in case you might be wondering, hey, is that cool to pull the water from the tap? Absolutely. All right, next up is iced latte. And here's the thing with our iced latte, and I probably said this in other videos. The iced latte is something that I think is really a special drink, and that's because I like most places will just take the ice and they'll pour cold milk or whatever milk they're using into the cup and then mix it with espresso, and I think that's just so lacking in thought and insight into what we do as it relates to as our craft, as coffee, and how we could present that so much better. Because when you steam the milk, it actually converts the sugars and helps the milk to become naturally sweeter without actually adding sugar. So the perception is a sweeter perception of the milk when you steam it, and then you also get the texture of the milk, which I think is always a welcome part of lattes. And so when you just mix milk and espresso, it's like, what are you doing? You're not doing anything. So at Spro, we've always steamed the milk for the texture and to increase the sweetness. We pour it over the ice to chill it down, and then pull the shot directly on top. So as you see, we're pulling the shot directly on top and letting it flow. As you can see at the bottom, you can kind of see the striations of the espresso starting to fill in and, fill the cup. And so we're pulling the shot directly into there. And I just think it makes for a much better, much more enjoyable and delicious latte, iced latte. So once the shot's done, top it off with a little more milk. Now, we're not steaming it too high. We're about 150 to 155 degrees, just enough to get it to convert and increase the sweetness. We mix it with a bar spoon a little bit to get it all even. So as you can see, it was really even in color with that white cap. That's really what we're looking for. And that's really what I think is exciting when it comes to iced lattes. And then next up is our Americano, one of our more popular drinks with a lot of our guests. They like to have the Americano. And I really think the Americano is a wonderful way to enjoy espresso and have a nice coffee, because it's really just espresso over water. And so if you don't really want the intensity of flavor in an espresso, I think the Americano is a really great way to go. And our typical Americano, of course, is a 12-ounce cup. I think it's really great as an 8-ounce or 6-ounce drink. One of my favorite drinks for Americano was to have a 6-ounce Americano in a cappuccino cup with water. And I remember my years, or my time at Heinz Public Market Coffee in Seattle when I was learning. I would sit there at 6:30 in the morning with a 6-ounce Americano. The sunlight is streaming through the shop glass, and just fantastic. And John Hornall is typically pumping Dr. Dre the Chronic. So it was always a wonderful, wonderful time. Now here's something that a customer, a guest came in and they're like, I wanted a cold brew and I wanted a hot cup. I don't really recall what was the order, but for some reason we're making the cold brew in a hot cup, in a 12-ounce cup. I'm not sure why they wanted it that way. I can't recall anymore. But if you're a guest and you come in and you have these interesting requests or a little bit different, feel free to ask us. If we can accommodate you, we most certainly will. That's really what we're about. The only time we can accommodate you with things is if we just don't have it. So, for example, people want a 16-ounce coffee. We don't have a 16-ounce cup, so we don't really have a way to prepare that for you. All right, so moving along. So here's our cold brew. We we brew the cold brew as a big toddy, essentially. And so that delivers us a concentrated brew of coffee that we keep refrigerated. And when it comes time to use, we actually mix it 1-to-1 with regular water, with our filtered water. So as you can see here, I've got this quart measure, and I just pick up a spot and measure it out with the cold brew concentrate, and then match it with an equal amount of water. And that makes our ready-to-use, what we call RTU cold brew, ready to use. And that's all kept refrigerated to keep it nice. And so now I wanted to show you also how we prepare the cold brews. So the first step, of course, with cold brews, we want to use our coffee. And our coffee, as you can see here, is, you might notice the tag on it says Perla. And Perla is our Perla Negra, which is a anaerobic processed coffee from our growers down in Nicaragua, the Mirish family. And what they've really kind of pioneered this anaerobic fermentation, where you're reducing the amount of oxygen that is available during the fermentation process of the coffee. And we're using a Caturra, a red Caturra coffee. And after the coffee has been pulped, meaning that the exterior hull has been removed, leaving the mucilage coating the bean, they're placed in rubber bladders for, I think, 15 to 21 days, which reduces the exposure to air. It doesn't fully remove the oxygen, like, we say anaerobic, and it's not totally, I don't believe that it's truly a 100% anaerobic environment, but it is a dramatically reduced oxygen environment, and that takes the malic acid that's in the coffee and converts it into lactic acid. So it goes through malolactic fermentation, which can give you interesting results. So when we first were introduced to this process by Ileana Mirish, she had a couple samples for us to try, and one of them was super on the extreme side of this process, meaning that it had really, really heavy blue cheese character, that pungent and blue cheese grip, which is very unusual in coffee, and I think it's kind of offensive, but I liked it. I liked it because of the offensive factor. Like, it's so pungent. It's kind of like when you try stinky tofu, like the Chinese style stinky tofu, like, it's extreme. Like, either you like it or you don't. Personally speaking, I'm not one that really, really likes stinky tofu. But, and the blue cheesiness in this one sample was really extreme. So I thought it was interesting. I was going to buy it because I just thought it's an interesting thing to allow our guests to try. But Stephen Layton from Has-Been in the United Kingdom, he really wanted the coffee, so he got that coffee, and I decided to take on the other sample, which was a much lighter of the malolactic fermentation, which only resulted in a light milkiness to the coffee. And the thing is, as I was tasting this coffee and it cooled, it became progressively sweeter in the cup and more milky sweet. And I really thought that was interesting, because here's this coffee with a milky sweet character to it. I think that, and at the time I thought to myself, this would be great for our iced coffee. And so I got some. We tried it that first year. I thought it was wonderful as an iced coffee. So we started having them, produce it and bring it in for us every year. So we try to get as much as we can, and I think it's really a fantastic way to express cold brew or iced coffee. Just a beautiful flavor. And the thing is that, we really want to take the time to think about the coffees we're offering to our guests like that. And we just, a lot of places really don't think too much about their cold brew, or they'll maybe just use the dark brews, or perhaps they're just using whatever leftover coffee from their batch brewers from the day before. That's not something we were ever interested in doing. We wanted to really find great coffees to use that really spoke in a certain voice, and I think that really comes through with this. So after we've ground all of that, it's all still grinding. So we put them in these big paper filter bags, and we grind the coffee in. And so we're using a ratio of 1 pound of coffee to 1 gallon of water. And we're going to let that steep. And I'll go through over that a little bit more. We're actually going to show you also how we actually finish it and set it up. So next up, we've got, what is this? This is 2 lattes, one with regular milk and one with almond milk. So a lot of our guests come in and they want to have alternative milks. And we offer soy. We've always offered soy. And then recently we offered almond. There was a short time when we offered oat, because I know a lot of people asked for oat. Decided to stay away from oat because, you know what, to be honest with you, there's just so much processing that has to go into oat milk that I just don't think it can be good for you. Like, you just can't make it. You can't make oat milk on your own. Like, if you ever took a bunch of oats, soaked it in milk or soaked it in water, then, you know, pressed it and squeezed out the liquid to make the oat milk, yeah, it looks nice, it looks great, tastes great, until you hit it with a steam wand. Once you put that oat milk in a steam wand, it suddenly becomes, well, surprise, oatmeal. And I was really surprised the first time, but it totally makes sense. You know, once you heat the particulates, the oat particulates that are floating in the milk, it absorbs the heat and expands and then becomes oatmeal. And it's really kind of nasty, I think. So once we kind of figure that out and learn that, you know, all these other companies are doing heavy duty, like processing with all kinds of vegetable oils to, like, essentially to tame and bend the oat to their will, I really decided that's not what we want to offer. So we just stay with soy, which arguably has its own problems with the processing. That's true. Although there are, we'll go into that some other day. But we do offer oat and almond. And so in this case, our guests wanted 1 almond and 1 whole milk. So we try to bring something nice to them. And a little bit of like latte art in there. Yeah, you know, try to make it nice. And so it's always simple. We always try to do very simple approaches to our espresso drinks. We just, like latte, milk, coffee. So you really have to find a nice way to make everything, and all the components have to be thought out. So we really think about our espresso and the milk, and we try to make the milk as best as we can. And then nicely, hopefully get a nice pour with good texture and a little bit of a nice pattern, pleasant pattern. We don't really, like I said in the past, we don't really focus heavily on the latte art. We like latte art. We'd like to have some level of latte art in there, but it doesn't have to be that heavy duty. All right, as you can see, we're back to the cold brew. So let that grind and finish off, and then came back to it after making the lattes. So after it's in the filter bag, we put it into this mesh bag that kind of contains it all together. And then now we've got another order coming in, a little house coffee. So I've got to make that happen. And our house coffee, you know, we kind of use this Uganda Mount Elgin AB, which is a really lovely coffee, good chocolate notes, nice body that we get from Uganda. And it is, we'll bring it simply with the Avid Clever, 24 grams of the coffee. And for the Clever, we grind it fairly coarse, perhaps not as coarse, well, actually probably about as coarse as we would for French press, equal, because the steeping is relatively the same, maybe slightly finer, just because the steep time is shorter, like we're doing a 3-minute steep rather than a 4-minute steep. But they're fairly close. And then hit it with the water and let it steep for 3 minutes. So it's relatively simple of a process, and then allows us to have the time to go back and like make 2 Americanos or iced Americanos, one with milk. So as I think I touched on earlier in this episode, we have the water, and as you can see, I added the milk to the 1 cup because one of them has milk. So we want to, for Americanos, whether they're hot or cold, we're adding any of the modifiers prior to pulling the shot. We want to pull the shot directly on top after everything's added. So for this one, we wanted to add the water and the milk together. So add the milk. If they wanted sweetener, we would use a simple syrup. for the iced drink because the simple syrup, of course, is already fully hydrated. We don't have to worry about trying to get, sugar crystals to emulsify into or to dissolve in the liquid. So it's much easier. So then we just pull it straight on top. As you can see here, the shots are just pulling on top, and that's kind of doesn't look too bad. Oh, look at that dark espresso color. We like that. We like that. All right, good. And so after the shots are pulled, we're just going to take the bunch of ice and pour it on top, and that will finish the drink. Add a cap, add a little ice, and then we're going to cap it off with our sippy lid tops and give it to the guests. We went to sippy lids several months ago, probably quite a while ago. Gosh, it could be pushing maybe a year, and we finally reached the point where we've expended all of our straws that we had in inventory. So we no longer now have straws and only sippy lids. And I think people are responding fairly well. It goes back to the whole, trying to save the environment and trying to save, protect the animals a little bit. And as you can see now, we're taking you down into the secret layer of Spro, down beneath where into the caves. So this is our baking kitchen downstairs. So basically, when you come into our shop, you're standing beneath the floor you're standing on is our kitchen and pantry area. So down here we do a lot of our baking. Michelle comes in from time to time. Although I have to be honest, during this latest round of the COVID, we've kind of pulled back on some of our own in-house baking, and I've been working with outside bakeries. But as you can see, we have our toddy brewer bucket, which will hold a total of 5 gallons. For this particular batch, I think we're using 3 pounds. So we're going to use about 3 gallons of water. So the coffee, as you already saw, is inside this paper filter bag. And I'm using a stirring spoon to make sure that all of the coffee is fully hydrated by the water. Sometimes if you don't do this, you'll have pockets of coffee that doesn't actually get hydrated and therefore will not participate in the steeping and brewing process. So we want to make sure that we're stirring and getting everything up to speed and together for that. And so, as you saw, as I was pulling the spoon out, rinse it off to keep all the coffee inside the bucket. And as you can see, because the coffee's pretty fresh, it starts to float. So you have to kind of re-stir to get it to be fully hydrated. And then we'll twist the filter bag in such a way to keep the grounds fully in the water. What we don't want is the grounds to float above the water level, right? And so we'll also twist down the outer mesh bag. Then we'll cover it up and basically leave it till the next day. So I believe this is a Thursday, so we'll leave that here. And tomorrow, Sergio, when he comes in, will strain it and put the concentrate into the containers, just like you saw earlier. And then we'll use that concentrated brew to make our RTU, ready-to-use cold brew that you actually enjoy. And, if you were to try the concentrate, it's really heavy. It's not terribly pleasant, actually. Like, I don't really like tasting that. All right, so we have two lattes this time. One hot, one cold. And I like to show these because, it's nice when guests come in and they have multiple drinks because it just gives you a little bit of a challenge. You just kind of think, okay, how do I want to approach this? So the more drinks you come in, the more drinks you come in on your order, in a way, the more challenging, and I kind of like that. Of course, this is a relatively quiet day, so there's not too many heavy-duty orders. The real pro is Sergio. He's there on the Saturday and Sundays when it gets much more busier, so I'm only there during the week, so I have the easier time, I think. But he also gets the bigger tip, so it kind of works out that way. All right, so where are we now? We're grinding up the coffee. Looks like I'm going to do both of the I've already prepared one portafilter. As you can see, I leave the portafilters on the counter because we don't want to expose the coffee to heat and just let it sit. So the moment we put it in the portafilter, we want to brew, right? Or the moment we put the portafilter in the group head, we want it to brew. So I'll leave the coffee in the portafilters sitting on the counter while kind of like a staging area for the coffee. So while I prepare everything else around it, then we'll do that. So now that other shot's ready to go, now I'm going to pull that shot on top of the iced coffee. And I'm doing it in this order because I'm trying to deliver both drinks together. You know, it's really my intention to, if you come with an order, I want you and your group to have your drinks at the same time. And when you come in with a bit larger group, like some of the guys from the wine source will come in with like 8 drinks at a time. Of course, they're not coming in as a group to sit down. They're actually just having it brought over to their shop. But we want to try to bring those together. That becomes a much more of a heavier challenge to time them all together. But we still try to time everything as we can. So the hot latte has a little bit of a heart on top. The iced latte gets a bit of a stir, a little bit of a spill, but good thing, caught that. Glad to say I caught that. And yeah, good. Now it's time to get that prepared for the gas lids on top. And like I said, for the hot cups, and I've said this in a previous episode, where we are looking to position the hot cup sippy lid with the sippy part facing away from the seam. The seam should be the back, and that's a big part of what we do. Now, the really important part of any barista's time is this moment. After the drinks have been served, after the guest is gone, and before the next guest comes in, we want to reset our station. So that, for me, I like to clean up rinse out the portafilters, get all the excess out of there, wipe down the steam ones, and just get the station in a general sense of preparation. Rinse out the pitchers, and so that when the next order comes in, it's time to go, and there's very little to slow us down. So like for this one, cappuccino, one of my favorite drinks actually when it comes to milk. I personally, for me, I think that lattes have a little bit too much milk. I like a little more balance with the coffee, and I think that the cappuccino has a nice balance. So we kind of follow more of the older school tradition. So we want 2 shots of espresso, 2 ounces of milk, and 2 ounces of foam. So we like that, and we want to give that. So it's relatively a simple and quick drink to make. As you can see, it's happening pretty fast. Shot pulls, pour, swirl, pour, and then voila. Cappuccino. Look at that. Looks nice and silky and glossy. That's really the kind of texture I like to see on a milk. Silky, glossy, nicely done. And then now time for another house coffee. Another guest comes in. I'd like to get a brewed coffee, please. We're happy to brew that for you, prepare that. And yeah, the Clever's kind of become our little bit de facto brewer while we've had the COVID times. Just a little bit, allows us to do a little more while we're working. So I'm using the R80 grinder from Compact Grinders. Compact is a company out of Spain, and we've been using their grinders for, must be 15 years. I mean, when they first brought their Compact K10 espresso grinder, we actually got one of their prototypes that they brought to America, and so we've been using that since probably 2005. So they're really great grinder company. The R80 is their shop grinder. It's a good grinder. It's a solid grinder. There is a little bit of a design thing that I kind of would like to see a change in an upcoming version. Like the way the spout, the internals of the spout is routed can allow for some clumping, some retention of coffee. But for the most part, if I put 24 grams in, I'm getting pretty much 24 grams out. At least grams by the whole number. If you actually watch on the Ono Coffee channel with Greg Skase in the Coffee Wonderland series, where we're grinding on the Malcone EK43 and the Weber EG1, Greg is actually weighing his coffee down to the 10th of a gram. And when he's doing the 10th of the gram measurements, we do see some fluctuation. But at least with the R80 with full gram measurements, we're not measuring to the 10th of a gram here, we see fairly a light amount of retention. So it's a great grinder, the R80 compact grinder. If you're thinking about it, flappers, 80 millimeters, fantastic. If you like the 100's even better. And so as you can see, we've got our little cups that we keep on our drawers. And these cups are our portions for our coffee. We keep a bunch of coffee portioned so that we can make drinks, brewed coffee, rather expeditiously. We want to be able to do that rather quickly and keep it as efficient as possible. So measuring out 24 grams of our house coffee right now into each cup. And basically the procedure is once it's weighed into the cup, we keep it in the drawers. You can see here. Then we pull it out, pull the cap off, dump it in the grinder, grind it, and then push the empty container back in the drawer until we get to the point where we're going to refill like we are doing now. So typically I'll try to do something, I'll do the refilling. Once we reach a point where we need to refill, I'll refill typically as I'm doing something else. So I've got this coffee brewing, so I'm trying to actually be as expeditious as possible because I probably have maybe 8 tins to fill, and I'm trying to get them all refilled within the 3 to 4 minutes that it takes for us to brew this house coffee. And then sometimes there's little pieces of debris or something, so we just toss that. And as you heard the beeper's ready. Time to let the thing fall with the Clever Brewer. The Clever Brewer is really great. It's Chinese made, BPA free, very reasonably priced. I think it's $25, $30 at the most. It's a fantastic little brewer. You use number 4 Melita style filters. And if you're really geeky enough that you want to like talk filter design, I mean, you can get all different. There's all these filters they're all kind of the same number 4 style Melitas, but then a lot of them may have different properties. And if you talk to some of the guys on the coffee forums, they'll talk about how different filters have different levels of fall, meaning that some have more greater resistance than others. And if you want to get into that, that's certainly something that you can get into, even using the Clever, which is relatively a simple approach. All right, so as you can see, we've got all of the tins filled. So success on my part, and that makes me happy. Now just waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. So we kind of give about 45 seconds to a minute for the coffee to fall out of the Clever into the cup. And it's just a black coffee, so put the cap on, make sure it's secure, and then bring it to the guest. Thank you very much. And now that the coffee's served, time to put all this stuff away. And looking good. Get everything tossed out and reset. We toss out the coffee grinds, rinse the Clever out, put it away, just so it's out of the way. And that's what you want to do when you're working your stations. Everything has a home. You want to return everything to the home as soon as possible, because the more you leave out, the more it just gets in your way and slows you down. So a lot of times when baristas are starting, they think they should leave everything out. Like you'll see them staging all kinds of stuff, like they'll put the milk pitcher out and it's like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Put that away. Leave it where it is. Get into the practice of pulling it out, dispensing, putting it back. Because even though it feels slow initially, it actually will be very speedy and efficient once you get used to it. That's the hardest thing, I think, to train new baristas and new coffee people, is that they just need to, think a little bit more about their processes. All right, so next one is double mocha. We got 2 orders for 2 hot mochas. And our mochas, we keep the ganache in the back fridge, so I got to take the cups over there with their own spoons, with their own bar spoons. scoop them up, put the chocolate in the bottom of the cup, and then pull the shot directly on top. And as we always talk about, we're always trying to pull the shot directly into the vessel that we're serving it in. Keep all we put the chocolate in there, the ganache, because we want the ganache to melt because it's refrigerated. So it's not hard, but it is thick, right? It is kind of, it's a truffle. Imagine what's inside a truffle. That's the ganache. And so it has this texture that needs to melt and to incorporate into the drink. So we'll pull the shot on top and let it sit for a moment like it's doing now, so that the heat of the espresso will help to break down and soften the ganache even more. And then while we're steaming the milk, and then we'll add a little bit of milk, of the hot milk, to the mixture. Then use the bar spoon to stir it up and make sure that it gets all kind of dissolved. So it looks like here I'm actually steaming the next pitcher while leaving the first one sitting. Let's see what we're going to do here. I don't recall, as I'm recording this, how I did this back then. But as you can see, everything's ready. So pour a portion of it out. So I'm here mixing the ganache with the espresso, making sure that it's fully liquefied and heated up. And now we're going to add the milk to it. Nice. A little bit on the puffy side, but nice. And then now to finish off the second one. So what I'm doing is I'm combining some of the milk from the last one into the other pitcher so that it won't be as puffy as the other one. Right? So if you notice the milk was a bit on the puffy side, that's because as the milk sits after steaming, the frothy part of it separates and is not really well incorporated into the milk. So you want to mix them back together to try to do that. So as you can see, this one here, a little more definition, a little more texture in the pour, a lot less fluffy on the second cup. So a little bit of a mistake in my part, I think. I think it's safe to say it was a little bit of an error. If we're playing baseball, I'd say that's an error, maybe. And there's our guest coming in. They're always, that looks like a Martia. Martia is always visiting us. He's at the Hopkins doing his thing. And so now, again, as always, just time to clean up and get everything prepared for the next run, which is right now. We've got, what do we have coming up here? We've got a cold cup. Oh, iced coffee with cream and a Topo Chico. There we go. So the iced coffee, as we already talked about, it's prepared and ready to go in the back. So it's really a simple thing once you've got the pitcher blended. So there it is, just a quick little bit of ice, quick pour. Oh, this one we're going to have a little bit of milk. Then we're going to bring it back. Cap it up. And then the customer, of course, has pulled the Topo Chico from the fridge. I always offer to pop the cap for them because they're not twist caps. So, yeah. So double Americano, one with one iced and one with sugar. I think that's what it said, right? Yep, there it is. Oh, both iced. Double iced Americanos, one with cream and sugar. There we are. So as you can see, adding a little bit of the milk. Now we're going to add the simple syrup. Again, the simple syrup we're using just because it's soluble. It's already, it's syrup, so it's much more soluble in the water than if we were to put the actual sugar crystals, which would wait. I mean, sugar crystals will fully hydrate in water. It just takes time, as all of you know. And of course, we don't want to take too much time. But we do have guests that like the crunchiness of the crystal sugar, so in a cold drink. So some of them ask and say, hey, can we just have it with the crystals? And I say, all right, as you wish. So again, we've got all the liquids ready. We're just pulling the shot directly on top. So nice and simple, nice and simple preparation, nice and simple approach. There we go, running both at the same time. Already stopped the last one. I'm going to stop the first one. Now we're on to the last one. Let that run. So I'm just kind of keeping my eye on it as I'm, working with the guests, ringing in their order, then running their credit card transaction. Now finishing up the credit card transaction with the guest. And then it'll be time to go back to the drinks, pull them down, add the ice, and finish them off. So I've got the camera kind of situated right in front of the ice bin. That's why I'm so close to the frame. So there we are, just a scoop of ice, and pretty much it's all done. Yeah, good. Another day here at the Spro, making drinks for all of you. So, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions about what we do, how we do it, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Love to hear from you. I'm always interested to know what would you like to see for future videos in any kind of, realm for coffee. Any of your ideas, let us know. And yeah, it's a good time. So back again, we're just clearing it all up, making it look good, resetting for the next one. This is Cafe Verite. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate you spending the time with us again. I know it's been another time. Please smash the like button and consider subscribing to us. We'd love to have you subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2021 or within 2021. So please subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe, tell your family, tell your enemies to subscribe. And have a great day.